Well, that actually
I
segues
tried.
perfectly into something I wanted to ask you about, because the elephant in the room, obviously, when it comes to professional wrestling for the last, 4 decades, has been Vince McMahon.
Yep.
Vince McMahon, due to a pending indictment from the federal government for human sex trafficking, among other misconduct, has been, removed from the organization of the WWE. They're now under the same umbrella as the parent organization for the UFC. It's all under completely new management. Do you foresee that opening up better opportunities for wrestlers who, as we've alluded to numerous times already on this podcast, are just absolutely exploited? And of course, people will think of The Rock, they'll think of John Cena, they'll think of the guys on TV, but the brutal grind to get there, and all the guys who are left behind with torn up knees and bad backs and prescription pill problems, and no recourse down the line, even though they were the ones that created the opportunities for the guys who did become superstars. Do you foresee that changing now that Vince isn't there, or do you think it's going to be still more of that long battle?
I don't know. That will depend on the wrestlers. Are the wrestlers willing to put their careers on the line? That's what I did. You saw what happened to my career. Even the great Jesse Ventura was cut loose because I tried. I stood up in a dressing room before WrestleMania 2. WrestleMania 2. I stood up in a dressing room, and it was 3 or 4 weeks before the event. And I said, boys, now's the time to unionize. I said, all the publicity's gone out. All we have to do is stick together, go out to the press and say, we refuse to wrestle unless federal negotiators are brought in. It's a federal law. They would have to come in. And I said, who do you think turns on the lights in these buildings? Union people. If they recognize what we're doing, Vince cannot run WrestleMania. The first thing that one of the guys said to me was, well, we need Hogan, Hulk Hogan. I said, no, we don't. All we need's Bundy. That's who he's wrestling. We don't need Hogan. And then we can contact the Charlotte guys and have them walk out, the WCW people. And if we do this together, we can finally get a union. I gave this impassioned speech that night. I went home the next day. My phone rang, and it was Vince. What in the hell are you doing yakking about this union crap in the dressing room? And I stood up to him. I said, Vince, why can't we? And I said, it's not just to fight you. I said, right now I pay $5,000 a year for health insurance for me and my family. This was the 80s, people. And I said, I pay over $5,000 a year. If we had strength in numbers, maybe I'd only have to pay $1,200 a year. I said, what about retirement? I've seen hundreds of guys retire after 30 years in this business. They don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And I said, if we had a union, maybe they could retire and get $500 a month. They'd get something. Well, I had to quit then because I signed to do Predator, and Vince wasn't going to let me. He said I couldn't do it. So I said, fine, I quit. And I went off and did Predator. Well, while I was doing Predator, Arnold come up to me and says, Jesse, I want you for the Running Man. I said, great. So before I went back to Vince, we negotiated the Running Man, and I had it in my back pocket. So when I went back to Vince, I said to him straight out, I said, Vince, you don't have to worry about me crying out for union anymore. He goes, really? Why not? I said, I got mine. I said, I'm now a member of the Screen Actors Guild. I said, I get retirement benefits. I said, I get health care. I said, if these guys are too stupid to stand up for themselves, I said, they're on their own. I tried. And so I have the Screen Actors Guild. And I will tell you guys today, I am currently on and collecting retirement from the Screen Actors Guild right this moment.
Yeah, that's why unions are so damn important, and that's why we got to continue to fight for them across the board. Like this country, look, for lack of a better word, this country was built on that desire and that organizing principle of workers organizing to protect themselves from oppressive, corporate leadership, or in that case, the robber barons of old. We see the same thing today with the tech industry. We see the same thing repeated, and of course, unions can be corrupted if you have bad union leadership. Obviously,
the
but
mafia.
that's right, but that's again on the backs. You got to fight. If you form a union, you got to fight to keep it above board.
It's called
so people
vigilance.
are protected. Vigilance, exactly.
Vigilance.
To your question, will the WWE change and become more? Could we see something like that? Well, it's hard to say because you're still talking about TKO. It's a big corporate conglomerate, but at the end of the day, I don't know, Dad, you'd know this better than me, but I mean, with one part of the leadership now being Triple H, Paul Levesque, he's a former wrestler, so that might, he's worked those roads and knows that process and knows what wrestlers go through, so that might create a sympathetic ear to this. I don't know.
It might, but I'm going to counter and say no. He's management now. And I'm going to counter and say the only way you're going to see a union in wrestling, it has to come from the rank and file. It is not going to come from the executive. They're not going to come out and say, hey, guess what? Sign here on the dotted line. We've organized a union for all you guys. You're going to get health benefits and retirement because we've done this out of the goodness of our hearts. Well, if wrestlers are going to wait for that with this new corporation, they're going to be waiting a long time. But I will say this. I will tell you this. Now that, and I think Ty will be okay with it, but now that wrestling has chosen this new direction, shall we call it, Jesse Ventura's in talks with them.
There you go. That's breaking news right here on the Vanguard. Yeah.
But again, it required them going in this new direction. Mm-hmm. And I hope you get what I'm saying about the new direction. The direction the company is now going was good enough for Jesse Ventura and the WWE to begin talking again.
Well, that's certainly exciting. I know we have a lot of WWE fans in our chat, particularly Ronwell, who desperately wanted us to ask you about the Vince McMahon storyline that was going on.